Hello, everyone. Welcome back to JMac Investing. My name is Jason. Today, we have another executive interview. We have Angus Bacala, who is the CEO of Ouster Lidar, fan favorite of the channel and a fan favorite of mine. I've been following them. Well, when they were announced to become public via a SPAC, and I interviewed Angus before they de-SPACed. And so this is my first opportunity to get him on the channel here after going public. It's been a little over a year now since they have been public. So a lot of growth in the company, and a lot of things have transpired since I last talked to him. So real excited to have him back on. How you doing, Angus?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back. It's been a year.
Yeah, probably a lot has went on in a year. Is this the first company that you've been a part of that's been public as far as in an executive role?
That's right. Yeah. So, and if you look back at my career, I spent time before this at Quanergy, a company I started. Before that, Amprius, which is a battery startup in Silicon Valley. So, every day that I'm at Ouster is the biggest company I've ever worked for and the biggest company I've ever led. So, thankfully, I have a really strong supporting cast in the executive team and across the company to help lead us through this period.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess kind of a bit of a congrats to you, even though I know you're no longer with Quanergy. Obviously, you're here with Ouster, but you helped found that company that is now also public. So you were at the helm of a company that has since come public, right?
Yeah, that's. I don't know if I could have predicted this back in 2012 when I started Quanergy that I'd have two public companies, but really pleased to be at the helm of Ouster. I think we're doing great things.
Absolutely. I think it speaks to some of the technology and things that you're at the front helm of. So anyway, don't want your head to get too big here. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I just wanted to just kind of touch on a few things here, and maybe kind of get some insights on the transition here. Obviously, lots of companies came public via SPAC. Some having a good time, some not so much. But I wanted to get your insights on after a year later. How's it been now being public and going through that process?
Yeah, and it's been an overwhelmingly positive year for Ouster. We had a fantastic 2021, like meeting our guidance. Coming out of the gates, sticking to what we had said in this all of our SPAC documents, guiding to it, hitting it, doubling the company just about year over year from 2020. It's just been an absolute breakout year for us. There's been a lot of awesome stuff that's happened because of all the funding that we brought on through the SPAC. So for us, it's just been this way of accelerating the company. We tripled the commercial team, acquired Sense Photonics to augment everything we're doing in automotive, and delivered on the L2X chip. This big new silicon that's coming out before now L3 in 2022. So we've done a fantastic amount of work. We've also had a lot of learnings. There's unique things about the public market, and sometimes that's out of your control, and sometimes it's in your control. But a lot of learning along the way.
I'll say it for you. The market's bipolar. I mean, let's be real. I've been a long supporter and even during that real hot period of a lot of companies coming public via SPAC, I was still very selective, and I really tried to dig into companies that I felt like had good long term potential and that were real companies with real products with things going on that that I felt like, because I didn't want to just cover all kind of. There was so many companies coming public at one point in time. And so you were definitely one at the top of the list that I was covering pretty heavily, and still to this day, as do as well and continue to. Yeah, and so I would say that it's been very awesome to continue to follow along. And many of I think in our last interview, I was like, can we see, because there was quite a few right before you de-SPAC, there was quite a few announcements of deals struck on sensors, and I was like, can we see? Do we think that this will continue as you go public? And you're like, absolutely.
And it seems like once I began to follow your company and progress, it was like, you were signing on new customers or contracts or partnerships seemingly weekly. Is this a trend that we can possibly continue to see?
Absolutely. Well, we've announced multiple specifically named customers in the last month that are significant customers, like Outrider, Casbor, Plus, some of the biggest LiDAR deals ever for high resolution LiDAR we've announced in the last month. We also announced 20 strategic customer agreements signed in the last 9 months, half of which we signed in 2021 alone. So You absolutely can expect a constant stream of new customers. We're just in a very different position in this industry than a lot of our peers.
That has been the case. I mean, you've signed on lots of new, what do you call them, SCAs?
Yeah, strategic customer agreements. We started, I mean, back when we were talking, we had said that we had 10 under our belt, 10 SCAs signed with customers, and we ended the year with 68. So a lot of growth on that front, over 600 customers in the year. And that's, I mean, talking a year ago, we said we were going to execute, and that, execution, ultimately, it's not something you can write a playbook around. It's something that your company can either do or it can't. And we did last year. So I'm really proud of that.
I think maybe one of the reasons the market initially was unsure about your company was maybe because not because you weren't so big into the automotive, like as big as the market that you've proven is for lidar sensors and this kind of technology in many other different markets, that you were signing a lot of, and you were having deals struck and getting sensors out right basically pretty quickly or immediately in some cases to companies, where a lot of these automotive SCAs take many years of R&D to actually get to production, right? So some of the other ones that had maybe some contracts in place, but they're 3-4 years out before ever putting anything, that'll be in production. You guys are already getting sensors out, and that's continuing. And now
Yeah.
now it looks like you're probably going to be tapping into the automotive.
Yeah, and so this is one of the things that is so curious, like standing on my side of the fence. We've been remarkably consistent in our messaging even before we went public about what Ouster is all about. We're about auto, industrial, smart infrastructure, robotics. We're diversified, but we have a core focus in auto. Every one of our products is being auto certified. And last year we did 34% of all units shipped into our automotive vertical. But people miss that. And I think, and it's for good reasons. It's because auto is a part of our story. Now we have a 100-person team dedicated to that part of our story. But when you look at all the materials, the collateral that we put out, the announcements, it's a subset of everything that we talk about, and so it gets lost in a lot of people's minds. If you go to our website versus our competitors only have cars on their websites. On our website, we have all kinds of industrial machines, all kinds of fixed infrastructure deployments. And so the imagery even kind of positions us differently in people's minds, whereas the reality couldn't be further from the truth. We have more automotive revenue on the product side than most of our competitors combined. We have a bigger automotive team than most of our competitors. And we have a ton of automotive progress and proof points on that front. It's always been a core part of the business. You can't ignore auto in LiDAR, but it's just Ouster is all about diversification because it builds a bigger company long-term, actually short-term and long-term.
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, great for clarifying, because I think when I was speaking along the perception of Ouster, that I feel and felt, but yeah, perfect summarizing it in a nutshell is what I don't perceive it that way, because
yeah, I mean, but it's been a learning process for us as well. Like we can communicate better about our ambitions across verticals, and I think actually there was some rightful confusion when we came out into the market. We were telling a pretty different story than our competitors about diversification and about how, and still to this day, I believe auto is a subset of the total opportunity. That's hard for people to really believe in a lot of cases. That auto it's the thing that is exclusively the exclusive focus of all of our competitors, and yet I think it's going to be long term the minority of all lidar sensors shipped, just like it's the minority of all cameras shipped in the world. That's a tough message to absorb if you're not familiar with it.
Right. Yeah, because I mean, like if you were to kind of, and this is just speculation, if you were to say which of the four categories that the four verticals that you're in, would it be manufacturing that could possibly be the biggest of them all? Because everyone, is eventually going to try to automate and put safety measures in their warehouses. And I'm down the street and there's a Walmart fulfillment center that went up that is And then these kinds of fulfillment centers for e-commerce are going up everywhere. Huge, like lots of capital spend of these big corporations is going into this type of well, some of the things that you're going to be providing products for, right?
Yeah, and so I mean, in terms of, is industrial going to be the biggest segment? One of the interesting things is industrials is already the biggest segment for LiDAR in the world today.
There you go.
Industrial LiDAR sensors, they're not even called LiDAR sensors in a lot of cases, they're called laser safety scanners. The laser safety scanner market is $1 billion market today. That Walmart distribution center, it probably already is filled with laser safety scanners on pallet moving and forklift robots. Or maybe they're not even robots. A lot of times it's a collision avoidance system on a human operated vehicle. So $1 billion worth of laser safety scanner LiDAR has been sold every year. It's a 30-year-old market. And so it's already a massive market, and Ouster is now displacing the incumbents in that market, which is pretty different than the public LiDAR company set that everyone most focuses on. So long-term, industrials will be a huge market for us too. It's growing. But things like smart infrastructure, I think, have the potential to maybe be even bigger. When you look at the number of kind of high-grade security cameras that are sold in the world, and traffic cameras, and I'm not talking about the $50 thing that you put in your home, but something that's the multi-$1,000 long lifetime traffic cameras. There's millions upon millions of these devices sold every year, and in aggregate, there's a $32 billion security camera market. Hundreds of millions of cameras sold every year. And so even 1% penetration into a market like that is an absolutely massive business for Ouster. So, I think security, smart infrastructure, industrials, robotics in aggregate will absolutely dwarf automotive long-term.
There you
It's a
go.
controversial statement, but I stand by it.
Nah, I mean, I can see it. But talking on the security solutions, I mean, kind of we could segue into the new security solution that you've recently struck a deal with Hexagon, which a lot of people I didn't know until I looked into they're a huge company, 35 billion plus market cap, publicly traded company as well. And you guys have jointly partnered up to launch a security solution. Can you talk about that, what it means, and what kind of volume that may bring to you in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So Hexagon has a bunch of sub brands. Tactic-Aware is a company they acquired, and so this is the Tactic-Aware branded solution in the Hexagon corporation, and it's a big deal. So the way to think about LiDAR-based security is that instead of just recording what has happened in 2D, a LiDAR-based security system can actively do the detection instead of having to have someone sitting there looking at the screen. So it can actively alert. You can say, I want my LiDAR-based security system to tell me anytime someone walks through this door, and it will do it with basically 100% accuracy, no matter if the lights are on, the lights are off, there's sun shining through the window, whether it's raining or whatever, indoors, outdoors, no matter the location. You can get true automated monitoring of your assets and alerts, and that allows it just makes for a much more flexible and efficient system when you can do that, instead of having the traditional route is that you have 100 security cameras all put out on a big dashboard, and someone's having to try to track and monitor and see where people are in every one of those screens. No, that's not the way it should work. The system should be intelligent enough to cue you and tell you what's going on in your facility.
So essentially, it's a smarter, automated capture and alert system. Essentially,
That's right. Yeah, you'll never miss something because the system will know what's happening and be interpreting where people are in your facility without having to have some human interpretive videos feed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when does that actually go to production, or or are they just buying sensors from you to add on as an add-on to that solution? Is that what it is, or?
Yeah. So this is one of the great things about our business model is, when we partner with a company like Hexagon and Tactic-Aware, now their salespeople are selling our products for us, and it's a win-win between the two companies. So yeah, we've already started selling this combined solution. We can market it, they can market it, and it's going out. Yeah, today.
There you go. And I love to hear it. I love to hear
Yeah.
it. And then the other, I think one of the acquisition of Sense Photonics was one of the biggest announcements that was made since I've been following your company. Like I did a video recently, speculating that you guys might eventually partner with Apple. You can speak on that or not, but the sort of what somebody like Apple's looking for is some of the technology that only you and Sense both had, the digital flash. And I'll butcher it if I try to explain the tech, but
Yeah.
VSCEL.
VXLs is how people
Yeah,
usually say. Yeah. So VXLs and SPADs.
there you go.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say that. So you guys acquired that company, and so now there's I would say some of the most cutting edge tech in lidar now was maybe a competitor to you, was maybe them, and now they're under your belt too, right? So,
Mhm.
so I was just gonna say that, yeah, that kind of sets you up and sets you apart, from a lot of the other players. This acquisition.
Yeah, and first, it's absolutely, you're right. I can't comment on anything that we're doing with Apple, but there's no question Apple, they were the first to ship a digital lidar with VXLs and SPADs in the consumer industry. It's a huge accomplishment what they did, and they went fully in on that digital flash technology, and it's in every iPhone now, and a bunch of their other devices. And it's really a monumental achievement what they did, but it shows how scalable the technology is. And that's a hallmark of digital technology. They can build a $20 digital flash lidar that goes in a phone, whereas we can build $100, $2,000, and $10,000 versions of those digital flash lidars, for different applications. Just like you can build a $10 digital camera and $1,000 and $10,000 digital camera, and there's perfect scalability of performance with that price point. But the underlying technology is flexible across all those. There's no difference in architecture in a digital camera across those different price points. So that's a really good takeaway of what Apple has done there, and is that there's scalability. And so Sense Photonics, the big thing about Sense Photonics is they were going after the same technology, same product strategy as Ouster. And they had a fantastic team developing that technology, and we're about a year ahead commercially and on the product side. They actually have working silicon, and we have these fantastic working prototypes. And you can go to our YouTube channel and actually watch videos of the working long range, extraordinarily high resolution, high performing digital flash lidar systems. So by acquiring them, we just accelerated everything by a year, and that's a big deal. So it was a big announcement for us. And what we're working on there with DF sensors is the holy grail of lidar, and really what I believe is the end state of lidar, which is just a lidar that looks like a digital camera. Looking out 5 years, if you pick up a digital flash sensor, it'll be a really, really small device with no moving parts, with a big silicon chip inside that doesn't cost a lot to manufacture, and a lens and some lasers. And it'll look like a digital camera, and it will behave like a digital camera, except that it just happens to produce incredibly rich 3D information instead of 2D information.
Really awesome. How long were they on your radar, or was it after you got you de-SPACed, and then the money made from that transaction made it possible to say, let's look out and see who's someone we can deal with?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the money from the SPAC and is what enabled the acquisition for sure. And again, this is what's been so great about us going public. But I've been working in lidar since 2012. I've literally watched every last one of the companies that have gone public and that are private start. No one started earlier than, other than Velodyne, no one started earlier than Quanergy. So I've literally watched every one of these companies start. Some of them succeed to some degree. Some of them kind of just, I don't know, they're still waiting to succeed. And so Sense Photonics has been on my radar since their very founding. I remember getting their very first kind of materials from their website, and being interested in it and waiting to see if they could succeed on the silicon side, which is really the hard part in these systems, or the hardest part is the silicon design. And once I saw that they had built functioning silicon that was performant, then there was a dialogue that we could have about what if we merged the two companies, and thankfully it worked out. The timing was right for both sides.
So where were they headquartered out of? How did that work as far as did they come to San Francisco, or did they you're maintaining their old headquarters?
Yeah, they actually were based in San Francisco. So,
Oh,
and just about a mile from our facility. So again, it was like a match made in heaven on so many fronts. So it's been a really seamless integration of their team. They now just all work at Ouster's headquarters, which are in the North Mission in San Francisco. And I don't think it was particularly disruptive for their team. And I've been really pleased with how the acquisition has gone.
excellent. Yeah, I guess we're kind of like we can wind it down now a little bit and just talk about like your thoughts on the lidar space in general. You just kind of touched on it, that you've been around for a long time and seen all the players pop up and crop up left and right. You think there's going to be consolidation that's going to take place in the industry? Where do you see yourself in all of that?
I hope consolidation happens. I mean, I feel sorry for companies that do have to consolidate or wind themselves down, but I mean, I think it's inevitable that it happens because there's just not space in the industry for it. You do have to understand, from my perspective, I've been dealing with the same dynamic for basically my entire career. There have been a lot of lidar companies in the private sector, and it used to be that I was just having to answer questions about that with VCs in Silicon Valley. It's actually easier for me now because in public markets, all these companies have to report their numbers, and it's much easier to distinguish Ouster in that competitive set because we're doing so well. We're actually growing. We actually have significant revenue, significant customers, 10,000 units shipped worldwide in our history. And when you compare those, a lot of those numbers are 2 orders of magnitude lower for our competitors. So it's actually become an easier story for me to tell in the public markets. So absolutely, there's going to be consolidation. The end state for automotive is probably 3 to 5 players, because automotive markets, it's rare for there to be single sourcing and like a single kind of dominant market share player. That's okay. It's a big opportunity. Outside of automotive, I'm less sure. I think that right now in industrials, there's really a dominant market leader that has the majority of market share. And I think that could become Ouster. I think there may be fewer players in these other verticals, and that's another attractive feature of them. So remains to be seen, but the conclusion doesn't have to be the same for each of the markets that we're entering.
Who's the dominant player in that market?
Well, I think you could look in. So SICK is a major laser safety scanner maker. I have a lot of respect for SICK. They've been around for 30 years. They built that market in many ways. And they're based in Germany. So SICK.
All right. Well, Angus, this is great, man. I really appreciate you taking time out here on a Friday, coming over, chatting it up, and answering some questions. It's always good to have you on. I'm excited to continue to follow the company. Anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to speak on real quick before we head off?
Well, I just wanted to say I appreciate the interest in Ouster. I know that you have a lot of followers, and they've been supporters of Ouster for a long time, and especially in a market like this, it's not easy. In the last year, our stock has not done well, but I do take that seriously. I took it seriously when all our investors were private VCs. I wanted to do right by them, and we're going to do right by everyone that supported us, and we're really taking that seriously and trying to do outreach and educate what's so different about Ouster versus all the others in the market. So appreciate the support, and I'm hoping we could do this again sometime.
Absolutely. And could be Ouster's traded on the New York Stock Exchange. Ticker symbol is OUST. That's all we got for this one. Thanks for watching, guys. Deuces.